According to Christian belief, Jesus was crucified because he was seen as a threat to the religious and political authorities of his time. He was a preacher and a healer who attracted a large following, which challenged the power of the religious leaders and the Roman Empire. The Jewish religious leaders were threatened by Jesus' teachings and popularity, as they saw him as a potential revolutionary who could incite a rebellion against their authority. They accused him of blasphemy and brought him before the Roman governor, Pontius Pilate, to be punished. Pilate initially did not find Jesus guilty of any crime, but he was pressured by the Jewish leaders and the crowd to have him executed. Jesus was ultimately sentenced to death by crucifixion, which was a common form of punishment at the time. From a Christian perspective, the crucifixion of Jesus was seen as part of God's plan to offer salvation to humanity by having Jesus take on the sins of humanity and die on the cross. The resurrection of Jesus 3 days later is seen as the ultimate victory over death and sin, and is celebrated as Easter by Christians around the world. According to the Bible, Jesus did not commit any crimes for which he deserved to be punished. However, he was accused of various offenses by the religious leaders of his time, including blasphemy and sedition. The charge of blasphemy was brought against Jesus by the Jewish leaders, who accused him of claiming to be the Son of God, which they considered to be a form of blasphemy. They also accused him of breaking the Sabbath by healing people on that day, which was considered a violation of Jewish law. The charge of sedition, or inciting rebellion, was brought against Jesus by the Roman authorities, who were concerned about the growing popularity of his teachings and the potential threat it posed to their rule. However, there is no evidence in the Bible that Jesus was involved in any political activities or advocated for violence or rebellion. According to the Bible, Jesus knew that he was going to die. In fact, he spoke about his impending death and resurrection several times with his disciples before it happened. For example, in the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus tells his disciples, "The Son of Man is going to be delivered into the hands of men. They will kill him, and on the third day he will be raised to life." Matthew 17:22-23. Similarly, in the Gospel of Mark, Jesus says, "The Son of Man is going to be delivered into the hands of men. They will kill him, and after 3 days he will rise." Mark 9:31. Jesus also speaks about his death and resurrection in the Gospel of Luke and the Gospel of John. In all of these accounts, Jesus seems to be aware of what is going to happen to him, and he prepares his disciples for it. From a Christian perspective, Jesus' death and resurrection are seen as part of God's plan to save humanity from sin, and Jesus willingly went to the cross to fulfill that plan. According to the Bible, when Jesus died on the cross, the veil in the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. This event is described in the Gospel of Matthew, the Gospel of Mark, and the Gospel of Luke. The veil referred to here is the curtain that separated the Holy of Holies, the innermost and most sacred part of the temple, from the rest of the temple. Only the high priest was allowed to enter the Holy of Holies, and only once a year on the Day of Atonement. The tearing of the veil at the moment of Jesus' death is significant because it symbolizes the opening of access to God through Jesus' sacrifice on the cross. It is seen as a sign that the barrier between God and humanity has been removed, and that people can now approach God directly through faith in Jesus. In the book of Hebrews in the New Testament, the tearing of the veil is described as a sign of the inauguration of a new covenant between God and humanity, based on faith in Jesus as the perfect sacrifice for sin. This new covenant replaces the old covenant based on the law, which was seen as incomplete and unable to provide salvation. In summary, the tearing of the veil during Jesus' death is seen as a significant event in Christian theology, representing the opening of access to God through Jesus' sacrifice and the inauguration of a new covenant between God and humanity. According to the Bible, after Jesus died on the cross, a Roman soldier pierced his side with a spear, and blood and water flowed out. John 19:34. The reason for this act is not entirely clear, but some scholars believe that it was done to confirm Jesus' death. The spear may have been intended to ensure that Jesus was truly dead, as it was not uncommon for people to survive crucifixion for several days. Others believe that the piercing of Jesus' side had symbolic significance. In the Gospel of John, the blood and water that flowed from Jesus' side are seen as a sign of the new life that is made available through his death and resurrection. The blood represents the sacrificial death of Jesus, while the water represents the new life and cleansing that is available through him. Still, others see the piercing of Jesus' side as a fulfillment of Old Testament prophecy. In the book of Zechariah, it is prophesied that the people of Israel will look upon the one whom they have pierced. Zechariah 12:10. Christians believe that Jesus is the fulfillment of this prophecy, and that the piercing of his side is evidence of his identity as the Messiah. In summary, the piercing of Jesus' side is a significant event in Christian theology, and its exact meaning may depend on one's interpretation of the Bible. According to the Bible, Jesus was on the cross for several hours before he died. The exact duration of his crucifixion is not specified in the Bible, but it is generally believed to have lasted for about 3 hours. In the Gospel of Mark, it is recorded that Jesus was crucified at the 3rd hour, 9 a.m., and died at the 9th hour, 3 p.m. Mark 15:25, 33-37. This suggests that Jesus was on the cross for a period of about 6 hours. In the Gospel of Matthew, it is recorded that Jesus was crucified at about the 6th hour, noon, and that darkness covered the land from the 6th hour until the 9th hour, Matthew 27:45-46. This suggests that Jesus was on the cross for a period of about 3 hours, during which time darkness fell over the land. In the Gospel of Luke, it is recorded that Jesus was on the cross from about the 6th hour until the 9th hour, Luke 23:44-46, which again suggests a duration of about 3 hours. In summary, while the exact duration of Jesus' crucifixion is not specified in the Bible, it is generally believed to have lasted for about 3 to 6 hours. In the Bible, it is recorded that during Jesus' trial before his crucifixion, the Roman soldiers made a crown of thorns and put it on his head, mocking him as the King of the Jews, Matthew 27:27-31, Mark 15:16-20, John 19:2-3. This crown of thorns is often referred to as the crown of thorns or the crown of mockery. While it is not explicitly stated in the Bible that Jesus was the only person who was ever crowned with thorns, it is unlikely that this was a common practice. The Roman soldiers who put the crown of thorns on Jesus' head did so as an act of mockery, in response to Jesus' claim to be the King of the Jews. It is unlikely that they would have treated others in the same way. Furthermore, the image of Jesus wearing a crown of thorns has become a powerful symbol in Christian art and iconography, representing Jesus' suffering and sacrifice on the cross. This has helped to reinforce the idea that Jesus was the only one who ever wore such a crown. In the Bible, it is recorded that after Jesus was crucified, the Roman soldiers came to break the legs of those who were still alive on the cross, in order to hasten their deaths and ensure that they would not survive. However, when they came to Jesus, they found that he was already dead, so they did not break his legs. John 19:31-33. Breaking the legs of those who were crucified was a common practice in Roman times, as it would cause the person to suffocate more quickly. When a person was crucified, their arms would be stretched out and their weight would be supported by nails that were driven through their wrists or hands. In order to breathe, they would need to push themselves up using their legs. However, if their legs were broken, they would no longer be able to do this and would suffocate more quickly. The fact that Jesus' legs were not broken is significant in Christian theology, as it fulfills an Old Testament prophecy that the Messiah's bones would not be broken, Exodus 12:46, Psalm 34:20. Christians believe that this is evidence of Jesus' identity as the Messiah and the fulfillment of Old Testament prophecy. From a Christian perspective, the death and resurrection of Jesus are essential to the Christian faith, as they represent God's plan to offer salvation to humanity. If Jesus had not died for us, the Christian belief is that humanity would still be separated from God and unable to attain eternal life. In the Bible, sin is described as a barrier that separates humans from God, and it is believed that Jesus' death on the cross served as a way to overcome this barrier. By taking on the sins of humanity and dying in their place, Jesus made it possible for humans to be reconciled with God and to attain eternal life. If Jesus had not died for us, the Christian belief is that humanity would be left to its own devices in trying to attain salvation, which would likely lead to an existence marked by sin, suffering, and death. The hope and promise of eternal life and a restored relationship with God that Christians believe in would not be possible without Jesus' sacrifice on the cross. Of course, this is a matter of religious belief, and there are many different beliefs about the nature of life and the afterlife.